Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ontario Vintage Tractor. Today we are in the shop, and we're going to get back to something that's been a long time in the process. If you're an early subscriber, you'll know way back we started working on our 1951 Allis Chalmers WF. We're going to do a full restore on this tractor. Other things got in the way, obviously. Farming equipment has to be fixed before anything else, and just other projects in life getting in the way. So it looks like we finally got some time set aside to work on this thing, and let's see where it goes. Alright, well, I'll show you where we're at. This is the old 201 cubic inch Allis Chalmers engine that was in my pulling tractor before we changed it. We opted to put a 226 in it, and it's probably as much as I'm going to say. But this, we know, is a very good running engine. It's got a couple of leaks. We've got a new oil pan gasket set for it, and the rear main doesn't leak, but while we're there, we're going to go ahead and do it anyway. The tractor's sitting here, well, what's left of it anyway. We've been inside the transmission. We've changed the shift pulls and everything, so the shifter doesn't wobble back and forth to extreme amounts anymore. We've removed the PTO, put a block off plate there. We're only really going to use this tractor maybe to rake hay, and it's definitely going to be my parade tractor next year in Cookstown for the Georgian Bay 2023 Steam Show. And yeah, so let's get this thing pulled out and dig into it. Alright, it's up in the air. Normally I would put this thing on a stand, but being that we're doing minimal work and then it's just going to go back down and get rejoined to the tractor, we're just going to do the work on the chain fall. So let's get the oil drained out of it, because I don't think I ever did that, and we'll get the pan off, see what it looks like inside. It sounds pretty hollow. Maybe I did. I just can't remember. It's going to be tightened, so we got to go this way. Nope, it's full. Hopefully this bucket's big enough. I am unaware. We'll find out. So once we get all that drained out and we'll let it sit there, get as much as we can out, we'll pull all these pan bolts off and pull it down and see what we're dealing with inside. Alright, so now what we're going to do is go ahead and take all the pan bolts out, get the pan pulled down, and then we can move on to the rear main. more to go. And we'll grab a screwdriver and pull the pan off. Beautiful. Nice and clean in there. So this one will have, I believe, the 4-inch stroke crank. But it looks like this thing might have been overhauled at one time, but the pistons are pretty clean. Well, it's not hard to tell why this was a good runner. It is a clean engine inside. Like I said, I'm going to get the bore scope and have a look at these pistons to see exactly what they are. But yeah, we'll get into the rear main now. Start removing a little bit of this old gasket here. I kept my good gasket scrapers at work, but we'll use what we got. Definitely a lot easier of a job when the block's upside down, but we'll make it work. This one stayed together. There we go. There's one main seal there. I guess the front of the oil pan seal, I should say. The other one stuck in the pan. That's mainly where it used to leak out, was these things, and they are super hard. Okay, so the rear main is held in by 3 bolts, and you can get to it without pulling the crankshaft. At first it looks like you might not be able to, but they're right here. 1, 2, and 3. So we should be able to get to that without pulling the crankshaft, I think. For whatever reason, oh yeah, so for the rear main, you have to pull the rear main cap, but that's it. So we'll do the rear main cap and then we'll start pulling that off. Okay, so with that off, a section of your rear main is pressed down in here, and then there's these 2 F gaskets, which I have one, I gotta make the other, no big deal. I have material. So we'll go ahead, pull the other section off here, and get to changing this on the bench. The only part that sucks is you gotta wrench them out, but that's no big deal. Ain't nobody around here in a hurry for what we're up to right now. The rear main wasn't leaking, it was just the pan, but I learned my lesson when I did the engine in the other tractor. It wasn't leaking when I did it either, but when I put it all together, it started to, I guess, from being dry and sitting, so I had to pull that engine all the way back out and do it over again. So we're going to try to avoid that this time. If for some other reason that's the way it goes down, then that's what it is. Like I said, normally I would tear engines down and make sure they're good, but I had this one in my pulling tractor and it ran strong. Like I said, the only thing that was wrong with it was a little bit of oil leakage, so we'll go ahead and just reuse this engine. We are going to do another one of these here very soon. I was just gonna I think, for the hay tractor, but well, it's apart. I've got other pistons and stuff I'd like to put in it, so we'll get it to make a little more power. Now you can't take these bolts all the way out, but you get them out enough that they just sit there, and then you pop the rear main off. That's it. So you can use a little bit of silicone up here just to make sure it doesn't bleed off. And then the rest of the gasket's down inside there. So that's it for your rear main. We'll go over to the bench and get everything cleaned up. Alright, so off camera, I went ahead and I washed all the parts before we go ahead and take it apart. The rear main's still in there. So we'll do it all on the bench, and then I'll show you it going back together. So in here is the foam of the rear main. Try not to poke yourself. I already got myself once today. Let's go in here with a pick, dig it out like so. Obviously it'll be oil soaked. That's it. That's one half of the rear main. Take your pick on a piece of cloth and wipe it out. Then do the same on the other half of it. Okay, now we'll get our parts. So these are the two halves of the rear main. Just another piece of foam. I know on the other one I did, it was thicker. I had to put it in a vise and pre-squish it, but that should go in. As well as these are what they call F gaskets. I had one, I had to make another. These go on the back side of the main bearing cap. Let's try and put these in just the way they are first. Might have to squish it. Oh, they're going in relatively easy here. Well, I might have lied. This one might want the vise too, so we'll go try that first. Just pinch that in the vise first. Just to kind of pre-squish. Then now it should go in relatively easy. And then I don't like to start these things dry, so what I'll do is I'll put some oil in here first. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it works for me. And you want them to stick up evenly on both sides so you get squished when you bolt it together. Okay, there's one. I'll head back to the vise and squish the other side and we'll put it in. Okay, so this is the main bearing cap. We'll start squishing the rear main seal in there. And again, make sure you have even amounts sticking up on both sides. Otherwise, you're not squared up yet. Okay, that's it for rear main. That's easy. We put our F gaskets on and then we'll head over to the block and put it together. So on these F gaskets, I'll use just a little bit of silicone just to hold them in place while I put them on. Okay, put our main bearing back in. Now we're ready to put it on the block. Okay, well this is something that you got to be aware of. These are shims for the main bearing caps, and you got to make sure they go back in where they were because they're all measured out. Which isn't a big deal. You just got to be aware, and we only have one on each side. Okay, we'll go ahead and put the lower on. So I've got the bolts through with our shims on. We'll go ahead and put that in place. F gaskets are in. And we'll snug these up for now, and then we'll torque them to spec after. Okay. Those are in. F gaskets didn't move. And we'll put the back plate on. Okay, so this is an important part. Like I said, when we took it apart, we have to put the bolts into this before we put it on because you don't have enough room between the crankshaft. So I've put a very thin layer of silicone on the back side of this, as well as for the F gaskets underneath. And now we'll go ahead and slide it all together. So you want to push it down, make sure your bolt holes are lined up. And again, they can be tight going on because you got to squish that yourself, right? Because of this crank being in the way, they can't Sometimes it can be a little difficult to start. First one started. That's usually what I'll do is I'll start one and then I'll use that as a kind of like an anchor point to pull the other one down and get it started. I'll try and get the top one started while we're here. That's it. There they go. Beginning their journey home. Alright, so off camera I went ahead, cleaned up the pan, got all the oil pan gasket sized up and everything. And getting everything prepped and ready to go back onto the engine. So what I'll show you I do with these things is right in here is the corner where these meet, because it's a 4-piece oil pan gasket. So I'll put silicone right in this corner where they line up together. Normally I like to leave these on an oil pan overnight so they take the shape, but we're going to try and do it today. Alright, so I've got the gasket laid out, a little bit of silicone down. And we're going to go ahead and put it up in the engine. This is a lot easier to do on a stand. I'm kind of regretting not doing it, but it is what it is now. That's it. Alright, well that's it for this episode of Ontario Vintage Tractor. The rear main's in, oil pan's in, and next episode, probably later in the week, we're going to bolt the flywheel on, put the clutch on, and mate this to the chassis of the tractor so we can start getting it ready to paint it. So, as always, if you can like and subscribe down at the bottom, give the video a thumbs up, and we'll catch you on the next one.